Hello everybody, my name is James, hope you're doing well and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about a big decision that's been made following heavy criticism from Max Verstappen about the 2026 racing. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Formula 1 content. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram and X at James's Pit Lane. I'll leave links in the description, but let's jump straight into the video. Now, as we know, Verstappen is not a fan of the racing created by the new 2026 rules. This year the power units are much more energy starved, with the batteries depleting a lot faster, and this has created back and forth racing, which has been likened to Mario Kart. And following the Chinese Grand Prix, Verstappen launched his biggest criticism of the 2026 racing. And if you want to find out what Verstappen said, I'll leave a link to a video I did in the description. Now, Verstappen's heavy criticism came following a very difficult weekend in China. I mean, Red Bull were nowhere, and in the Grand Prix, Verstappen retired early with an issue, so a really bad weekend for Verstappen. And when Verstappen's comments were put to Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff, Wolff suggested that Red Bull's tricky weekend was heightening Verstappen's feelings, with Wolff saying, as quoted by The Race, "Max is really, I think, in a horror show. When you look at the onboard that he has in qualifying yesterday, this is just horrendous to drive, and you can see that. But it's not the same with many other teams. From an entertainment perspective, I believe what we've seen today between Ferrari and Mercedes was good racing. Many overtakes. We were all part of Formula 1 when there was no overtake, literally. Sometimes we're too nostalgic about the good old years, but I think the product is good in itself. We saw quite some racing in the midfield also, and I think that is, the positive. Clearly lift and coast in qualifying, I'm sure for someone like Max, who is a full attack guy, is difficult to cope with and digest, but it's more, I would say, a car specific issue that kind of magnifies the problem that it is, because if you sit in front of a TV or in front of a screen, even Max would say that was interesting racing in the front." Now, Verstappen is not the only driver who's been critical of the racing in 2026. I mean, other drivers across the grid as well have spoken about battery management being too dominant a factor in the performance. And well, it was revealed earlier this month that Formula 1 chiefs and teams could consider changes to the 2026 rules as early as the Japanese Grand Prix, with discussions set to take place following the Chinese Grand Prix weekend. However, the race says it's now learned that Formula 1 is to now hold fire on making any major changes to the 2026 rules until at least the Miami Grand Prix, with the race saying, while there had been intense criticism of the rules following the Australian Grand Prix, both from drivers and fans, the situation has changed after a more encouraging picture of things in China. The consensus in the paddock is that some aspects do need addressing, such as the qualifying spectacle and some overly complex elements to the regulation, but they are not big enough worries to force a rush towards any knee-jerk changes. Instead, it's felt that it's better to hold fire and make a more considered action plan. So why is this the case? Well, one of them could be the fact that Australia was a much more energy-starved circuit, whereas China was a lot different. It's much easier to charge up the battery. Therefore, getting a greater understanding from a third event in Japan will give a better indication of what the reality is with the 2026 cars. And on top of that, there's also no racing in April, meaning there's more opportunity to find solutions during that month, with the race saying. Furthermore, the cancellation of the Bahrain and Saudi Arabian Grand Prix has opened the opportunity for a larger window in the gap before Miami to evaluate and implement the correct changes. The plan now being worked on is for next week's team principal gathering to still go ahead, but the focus will now be on a technical working group meeting with technical chiefs that is being set for the second week after Japan to properly evaluate the regulations. There will then be enough time to work on areas that need improvements and have the revised regulations approved and in place for when F1 resumes in Miami at the start of May. But that's going to be the video from me today. Thank you ever so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos, and until the next one, take care. Bye.